Hello, how are you feeling? How are you feeling on this beautiful day here in North Carolina? What's the weather like where you are? Am I making small talk? Maybe just a little bit, just to warm up. Why am I sitting in front of a microscope, you may be asking. This microscope belonged to my father-in-law. It's very heavy. I am uncomfortable holding it, and I have been trying to exercise, so I'm going to put it down. That's just to illustrate how heavy it is. I'm not sure what it's made out of, but my father-in-law, God rest his soul, was an amazing man who was a chemist, a polymer chemist, and actually was involved in the creation of Lee press-on nails. He met Cher once. He also is involved in the patent for those fillings, those sealants on your teeth that are the same color as your teeth and have really revolutionized the dental industry. So a really fascinating man, and what was so fun about Jack is that he was very curious. And this was his microscope when he was very young. I don't even know how old it is. I've tried to look up the serial number, but it's unclear. But it's based on other microscopes I've seen in my lifetime. This is a pretty old one. And I wanted to talk about it today because I've been thinking about sort of all the explorers that came before us, that lived through unprecedented times of difficulty. And I remember being in 5th or 6th grade and learning about all the explorers like Cortez and Vasco da Gama and Magellan and Ponce de Leon, and all of the adventures that they took, and all of that, what that took to overcome the fear involved, and what it took to overcome the stories and the myths of those who had come before them about what they would find on their journeys, and what it must have taken to gather the gumption and the fortitude and the willingness to face the uncertainty no matter what it cost. And it's really inspirational. And although at the time when I learned that information, I was focused on memorizing who did what for the test, now I look back really with fascination and wondering how high their level of curiosity must have been to give them the courage to go on those journeys. And so I'm bringing together the microscope and this idea of curiosity in the context of talking about story, and about how all of us have stories about what's happening in our lives and where we've been and where we're going. And some of those may or may not be true. And there may be some things coming up for you, some emotions during this stage of your hero's journey that don't compute or are not resonating with or are conflicting with the stories that you've told yourself up until now. And we're all wired for story. We fill in the blanks in our life with life experiences based on what we know. And so when we look at things without a microscope, we see the gross context based on what the stories we've been telling ourselves and what others have told us that preceded us. But once we have the tools, we can get more curious and look not only just with mind's eye and with our visual fields, but we can turn up the magnification on what is actually happening. And you can imagine the first person who looked like at pond water. Did you do that in high school? To see what was under there, and you thought, oh, it's just water. And then you looked at it at 10 times magnification and you saw amazing things. And then you looked at it at 100 times magnification and saw even more incredible things. And true story, I was going to be a pathologist, but with it normally if there's two eyepieces instead of one, I would be sitting at the group looking at the specimen on the multi-headed scope, and as the leader of the story looking at under the pathologic slide of the tissue specimen, I would get kind of bored, and I would fall forward and hit my head, and I'd get a bruise right here between my eyes. And I thought maybe that was a sign that I shouldn't be a pathologist. So anyway, the point is that when we get curious, we free up the brain, and there's always more to discover than is present at face value or upon first glance. And so I want to give you permission to get curious, because when we get curious, we notice things and observe things without judgment. And it really helps expose us to new things, to the mystery of the world and what's yet to be discovered in ourselves and in our communities. And I think during pandemic time seems like a really good time to get curious. So what stories are you telling yourself? What have you been told is true? What are you starting to doubt is true or isn't true? And how will getting curious open your mind without judgment and allow you to see things in an entirely different way? I'm excited for what you discover. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching.